The pace of autism research continues to accelerate. Health organizations, researchers, and the community have partnered with government and other funding agencies, including Autism Speaks, to conduct research that helps us to better understand autism and ultimately to enhance the lives of autistic people. We've learned a lot over the last year about common medical conditions associated with autism. In one important study of gastrointestinal issues, we're seeing that there are specific patterns of microbes in our gut, bacteria in our gut, that are different in people with autism, particularly those people with autism that have GI issues like constipation. In another study, a small study, we saw that a treatment, probiotics, which may help to balance those gut microbes, was able to decrease the gastrointestinal issues in people with autism who use probiotics. It's an exciting area of research, and we hope that these findings can be repeated so that we know for certain what treatments could be helpful and who they could help. Another study looked at a treatment using iron supplementation to help with sleep problems. In the past, we've seen that in neurotypical individuals with low iron levels, iron supplementation can help these people to sleep. However, in a randomized controlled trial conducted by our Autism Treatment Network, we saw that supplementing people with autism with iron did not improve their sleep difficulties. This is a negative study, but negative studies are still important because they can tell us what not to do. We've known that genetics is important for autism for many years. And over the last 2 decades, we've learned about these rare genetic changes. These are new changes in the genetic code that aren't inherited from parents. They're just in children. And they oftentimes lead to a significant autism, including intellectual disability and other common medical conditions like epilepsy. But this year, we saw a study that was published that showed us that in 5 countries, we were able to establish that inherited genetic changes, inherited genetic variation is also important for autism, and in fact may account for the majority of autism. And this is important because those rare genetic changes are less likely to occur in siblings. But for these inherited genetic changes, it's more likely that siblings will also inherit them. And as a result, siblings are at higher risk for autism. And ultimately, by understanding these genes, we can start to understand what these genes do, how they influence our body and our development, and then we can look for treatments that impact those developmental changes. In 2019, researchers are continuing to find that if we help the caregiver and the family, we not only help the individual with autism, but the whole family benefits. In one study conducted by our Autism Treatment Network at Massachusetts General Hospital, the researchers gave parents a mindfulness intervention, and parents who took to the intervention were able to show decreased stress and better coping. And in another study published this year out of Stanford University, we see that if we train parents in delivering behavioral interventions, in this case pivotal response treatment, and the children also receive direct intervention, that the children that receive both do better than children who get standard treatment. So these 2 studies show us that if we help parents and we give them the tools that they need, that ultimately the parents will be less stressed, better able to cope, and better able to enhance their development. Another thing we're learning is that we need to do a much better job in helping adolescents with autism transition to adulthood. And research is very important because research can help us to find evidence-based practices. Earlier this year, researchers, including data scientists at Autism Speaks, published a framework that helps future researchers to understand what types of research, what designs are going to be most helpful for advancing our knowledge about adult transition in autism. In particular, the framework helps us to understand what is meaningful, what are meaningful outcomes for people with autism as they transition into adulthood. Whether it's supported employment or competitive employment or housing or just being a part of your community. How can we build evidence-based practices that get us to a place where every adolescent with autism can make the best transition possible to adulthood? One final study I want to highlight was published by Autism Speaks researchers using public health data The study found that many people with autism are not receiving appropriate health care. We see that our healthcare system in most cases is working for neurotypical individuals and even for people with other disabilities. But there's a disparity in healthcare for people with autism. There are many causes for that disparity, but some of the important ones are that people with autism oftentimes don't have appropriate health insurance. They may also not have the supports just to get to appointments or to make the appointment useful for that individual. Regardless of the reason, we know that we can do a better job. We have to decrease the disparities in healthcare for people with autism. At Autism Speaks Science, we're constantly asking new questions and looking for ways that we can enhance the lives of autistic people. This year's progress continues to help us discover solutions to help people today and learn more to give us better tools in the future.